Do Black employees face backlash from white managers when they self-promote? Hi, my name is Colette Elizabeth, and I created this channel as a safe space with you in mind. I help Black women to embrace new seasons of their lives with purpose and joy. So today we are going to talk about what happens and what the research shows when Black people, including Black women, self-promote at work. So what prompted this video is a question that I was asked during an interview that I participated in on Dr. Kimani's channel called Lifting as We Climb, Consulting Wellness Services. And I appeared on the channel, and one of the questions that Dr. Kimani asked me, or one of the topics we talked about, is how when we as Black women talk about our accomplishments or our contributions or our education or what have you, how we are treated in the toxic environments where we found ourselves. And so I thought, let me talk a little bit about that, because one of the things that I'm seeing in my comments, and one of the things I know for sure, is that Black women tend to be some of the most educated women on the planet. And I've said that in a number of different videos, but I will say it again. Black women tend to be some of the most educated women or people on the entire planet. So when we go on to these jobs for which we are well qualified, educated, and prepared for, and we find that we are being harassed and bullied, we tend to question ourselves, our abilities, and our education. And so sometimes we think, if I just get another degree, if I do this, if I get another certificate, if I take on another project, if I work an extra hour or two, maybe then. What I am here to tell you is that you are not imagining being treated differently when you give your all to an organization and then you remind them that you did that. I read an article today, and the article talked about a 2022 study where the researchers surveyed it was a racially diverse group of professionals in a workplace. The survey focused on how employees were rated when they self-promoted in terms of speaking to their contributions to the organization or talking about their accomplishments. The study was looking at how were these people rated by their supervisors, who, by the way, were all white. And I'm saying supervisors, they use the word managers. So the study was looking to see what was the relationship between employees from racially diverse backgrounds. What was the relationship between these employees self-promoting, okay, again, talking about their contributions and talking about their accomplishments, to how they were rated by their supervisors. So I'm not sure if the researchers were surprised. We as Black women certainly are not going to be surprised by the results, which I will share with you. Well, the study shows that when whites, Asians, and Latinx employees self-promoted, their managers tended to give them a high rating. However, when Blacks self-promoted and talked about their accomplishments and talked about their contributions to the company in the same way that these other groups did, their ratings were low. They were rated down. So the study controlled for education, how long the individual or the employee was at the company, and for how long the employee was in the position they were currently in when they took the survey. Okay. And when I say that the study was controlled for these 3 items, it means that when the researchers collected the data, collected the responses from the survey, they excluded and did not consider the employee's education or how long the employee had been with the company or organization, or how long the employee had been in their current position. Okay, I'm going to come back to that. So, what I want to say is, when we see studies like this, and by the way, this study was published in Applied Psychology, and it was a 2022 study. I'll put a link to the study in the description box below so you can go see it, you can go view it, and I believe there may be a cost for you to access it. If you're a student or you have connections to an institution, you may be able to get it at no cost. But anyway, I'll put the link to the study in the description box below and you can go see it. But what the study found, which we as Black women, and I know Black men experience this, but my channel is really curated for Black women. So, Black men, I'm talking to you too. But what the study found is something we already know. Okay. We live this every day, that we are punished, we are penalized for talking about how we contributed to a project and made it successful, how we leveraged our skills and our knowledge and our ability to make a department reach their objectives, and how we are penalized. We know these things. Why? Because we are seen as bragging when we do the same thing that other groups have been doing for years and that other groups are rewarded for doing. This study simply showed what we already know. And I wanted to make this video because, again, I have been receiving so many comments from Black women saying, hey, I thought if I went back and got another degree, I thought if I went back and got another certificate, I thought if I volunteered to be on another work, or if I worked another 10 hours extra a week, that I would be rewarded. But it seems as if the reverse is happening. And I'm wondering what I'm doing wrong. So I'm going to tell you what the article said and what I've always said. Listen, sis, it is not you, it is them. These organizations that have a built-in system to where Blacks are not recognized and they're not rewarded for their accomplishments or their contributions to the company. I personally have experienced that. On Dr. Kimani's channel, I explained how when I had gotten my master's degree in leadership and organizational studies, when I earned my degree, earned it, okay, and I talked about it with folks, that was seen as bragging. I even had some employees, and I'm not going to get into who they were and what their race was and all that in this video, how some employees filed a complaint to say that I was doing it to put them down. Okay. And so it was an attempt to silence me about my accomplishment, to silence me about my contributions to the organizations. So, sis, this is happening everywhere. So if this is happening to you, know that you are not alone. And we know, we didn't need a study to tell us this. We already know. We see it every day. We see individuals who are less experienced, less competent, less educated than us progress in the organization. We see it. And the study talked about one of the reasons, getting back to the study, one of the reasons why they concluded that Blacks were being adversely impacted by self-promotion was because of some biases that the white manager had. And my question to that is, you think? You think? We don't need a study for that. We know that. We are grateful for the study because what it does is it validates and quantifies what we have known for years. Okay. We've known this, we've experienced this, and we live this. Okay. And these organizations know this as well. They know that their systems have built in racism, have built in sexism, and have built in all the other isms. They're aware of it and they don't want to fix it. Okay. They're not interested in fixing it. What these organizations are interested in doing is window dressing. So they will roll out a DEI program or diversity and inclusion program, or they will have some type of diversity training that's mandatory. This is all window dressing, and it's performatory. It doesn't mean anything, and it's not meant to mean anything. So I looked at the article and I said, we already knew this. We already knew. I was just interested in some of the suggestions. But before I get into what some of the suggestions were in the article, I want to go back to the three things that were excluded and were not considered in the study. And I mentioned that one of them was education. The other one was the length of time that the employees had worked at the organization or their tenure. And the third one was the length of time that the employees were in their current position. And I have not seen the actual data that was collected in the study. I haven't reviewed it, but I don't have to review it. And I will say that I believe 100% that the Black employees were probably more educated. Okay. The Black employees probably had more experience, had been at that company longer, or in the industry longer if they weren't at that particular company, and that the Black employees probably had more experience or had been in their position longer. These are things that I absolutely feel that I know for sure. I don't even need to see the report. Why am I saying that? I've lived that. The toxic job that I left, and I've talked about in other videos, was in a government sector. In the region where I worked, in the region, there were, I want to say, I don't know how many managers. Okay. And when I did my own survey, okay, of the managers' educational background, I did it of their educational backgrounds, and I'm talking about the managers at all levels. So entry level managers, middle managers, and executive level managers. 0% of the white managers had a college degree. Zero. I'm trying to make a zero. 0% of them had a 4-year college degree. Zero. About 50% of the Latinx managers, probably a little less, had a 4-year college degree. Okay. Do you want to know the percentage of Black managers that had a college degree at the time I did the survey? 100%. 100%. I'm going to say it a third time. 100%. Now, am I saying that a college degree does it make you qualified for every job? I am not saying that. What I am saying to you is the survey that, the research that was done for the article that I mentioned, it excluded those three factors. And I'm not saying that's why it excluded them. I just wanted to bring up my own point of what I think it would have shown. That's all I'm saying. You may look at the report and say, Colette, you don't know what you're talking about. They're all the same. And I'll accept that. I will. But I would bet that the Blacks were probably more educated. And I stand to be corrected if I'm wrong. Okay. The other thing I wanted to bring up is I told you in the region, 0% of the whites had college degrees, 0% of them. About 50% or less of the Latinx had college degrees, and 100% of the Blacks had college degrees. So, do you want to know who occupied the top level management positions when I took the survey? All of them were occupied by whites. Yes, the ones with no four-year college degree. Who occupied the next level? Mostly Latinx. And, of course, I was in there too, right? And then, of course, your entry level. But most of the Blacks that are in management occupy the first level of management, if they're in there at all. There was a time they weren't in there. I think that's a little interesting, don't you? I always thought that was interesting, that I would get accused of bragging to have a degree and experience. So one of the things that was said to me often was, a lot of times people can have a college education, but they don't necessarily have the experience. Just looked at them because I really didn't understand, why are we talking about this? It was brought up to me. I didn't bring it up. It was brought up to me, but this happened over and over again. And Dr. Kimani talks about how it happened to her as well, where she was the only person in her district that had a PhD, and how some of her peers as it relates to working where she worked, refused to acknowledge her education or even refer to her as doctor. And she says in the video, she didn't expect people to do it, but the very fact that they absolutely refuse to recognize it, that tells you something. That tells you something about them. I am making the video because I want Black women to know and to understand that you are not making this stuff up. This is not a dream or a nightmare. This is reality, and it is happening. And though things seem horrible and they probably are not the best circumstances, the article suggested that one way is to start documenting what's happening. And I've talked about documenting, and I believe in documentation, but I'm just going to keep it 100 and real. Documentation sometimes is not helpful. It wasn't helpful for me in terms of doing anything about what was happening to me in the workplace. And I will be doing a series detailing what happened, and I'll be showing my receipts doing those videos. So stay tuned for that. But I just wanted to say that I still really advocate for documentation. As I mentioned on Dr. Kimani's channel, the documentation does two things. One, it makes a record of what is happening. And two, it gets the information out of your mind and onto the paper. It opens up your mind for you. Okay. And the other thing I think it does is it gives you some assurances that if you need to do what you need to do, you have documentation. And I know you're going to say, but Colette, you just said that the documentation doesn't do anything. I'm going to be honest with you. I have not found that it did anything for me, other than it did help me have a sense of knowing that I have all my paperwork and receipts, and I have that information to this day. I have everything. So continue to document. And as I said on Dr. Kimani's channel when I was there, the other thing is it helps to, for example, if another Black woman has an, and she happens to tell you about it, and you feel comfortable enough of letting her know, hey, I let them know, I documented it. So, you know, if you go forward with whatever actions you need to pursue, whether it's EEO, and that's a whole nother something I'll talk about. I always say I think that's a scam, but I do think we need to still follow the processes that are in place. We still want to follow those. Um, but it's good for this other sister to know that you have kind of laid some groundwork for whatever she decides she's going to do. And I know you may say, Colette, that just seems like a lot of work for nothing. And I know it does. It seems like not a lot of work for nothing. And it may be, but I still, maybe it's the manager in me. I still believe that we should document information. That's just me. The other thing that the article talked about is getting a sponsor. And usually a sponsor is not necessarily somebody who is going to say, she's the bomb, she's this, she's that. I mean, the sponsor could say that, but usually what the sponsor is helpful in doing is kind of helping you to navigate some of the political landscape that is in every job. It's in every job. And that sponsor can also share his or her political capital, is what it's called. Political, social, career capital, because they know people, their network. So that networking that some of these sponsors have can be very valuable, very, very, very valuable. So if you get in a situation where you have an opportunity to be sponsored and you think it may be helpful, I would encourage you to take advantage of that, to leverage any relationships that you have with individuals who are willing to sponsor you, because being sponsored can make a difference. I had a sponsor at one time. I call her my guardian angel. And my sponsor basically helped me several times. And I'm not sure where I would be if I were not able to have access to that sponsor. Unfortunately, my sponsor left the organization, completely left. And I'm not going to get into why, but you can just about imagine. The last thing I'm going to say, this economy that we're in right now, I don't know if a lot of people realize it, but it really, really is an employee market. So if you are thinking about making career changes, if you're thinking about changing jobs, this is the time to do it, because uh, unlike in the past, there are more jobs available than people willing to work them. So let's say you've been thinking about leaving this, you've been wanting to leave. This may be a good time for you to start making your plan to leave the job where you're not being supported, and worse, you may be harmed in staying in these positions. So you may want to consider that. You may want to think about it. I would really challenge many of you to to leave and tell. Okay, tell everybody that you want to tell. Now, people say, Colette, you shouldn't talk bad about your prior employer. To some extent, I believe that that's true, but I do feel that if you are asked by another sister how they felt, be careful about an employer. You should tell. You should also, I believe, and I had just recently heard this, you should post your experiences on these different job sites, these job boards, Glassdoor. Hey, how was it working at company XYZ? And put on there. I believe you can post anonymously. And there's also a site for minorities where we can post and talk about some of the harmful behavior that we have experienced at these companies, because many of us have been harmed and we have been traumatized. I'm included. And again, I will be sharing in details some of my very personal experiences that I had. And once I do this series, I probably won't go back to discussing that because I just want to move on. I want to move on, but I think it's important to talk about it, because sometimes I know for me, I was isolated. I felt that I was the only person going through this. I didn't have anybody really to talk to about my experiences, to compare my experiences until I was out. And once I got out, then I started talking to different Black women. And I mean, their experiences almost totally mirrored mine, completely. In fact, Dr. Kimani's experience and my experience, even though we're in different industries, complete different industries, was almost identical. She will be on the channel. So I believe she'll be in the next video or the video after that. Dr. Kimani will be here. And I thought it was important to have her on the channel, because I don't want to just encourage Black women to up and leave their jobs and not have a plan. I'm not telling anybody to do that. I think you should plan if you can. If you cannot and you are being harmed, I encourage you to do what you need to do to stop yourself from being harmed. And being harmed is not always physical. It could be emotional. It could be mental. It could be a number of things. And that's one of the things that Dr. Kimani talks about. She talks about how she believes that you cannot begin healing from a toxic workplace or from a workplace that is harmful to you if you are still in that workplace. So I'm going to have her on the channel. Dr. Kimani also has a coaching program for Black women who have left toxic work environments, because once you leave the work environment, the effects of the harm that you have experienced, or the trauma and the assaults that you have experienced, they don't go away automatically. So I'll have her on the channel. She'll talk a bit about it. The one cohort is already going. I'm in that cohort, and she's going to be starting another cohort soon. And so I will let her share her information, and I will link it. I just want you to have those resources. Okay. And I've also talked about Anne-Marie Archer. She is the Anti-HR HR Lady. Her channel is specifically geared towards providing some guidance to Black women as it relates to exiting a toxic or harmful or hostile, and I should probably use the word hostile because a lot of people say it's a legal term, but leaving these harmful work environments. I will put a link to Anne Marie's channel in the description box below, because she also helps you to get your money. If you feel that you need to leave a toxic workplace, but you need to get your money, she's the person to help you do that. And I have mentioned her in a number of different videos, and I will try to get her to be on the channel. Anne Marie is an attorney, and she doesn't give the legal advice when you talk to her. She's an HR consultant for employees wanting to leave organizations. I don't even think she provides any services to employers. Again, I just wanted to talk about self-promotion and how it harms as Black people and as Black women. And all my research that I've done for my dissertation says the same thing, that the workplace is, though it may be diverse as far as employees and some managers at the operational or entry levels, when it comes to those upper suites, when it comes to those developmental opportunities, when it comes to, in this case, receiving a positive, just a positive appraisal, a positive assessment. When it comes to that, we do not get a fair shake. So again, my name is Colette Elizabeth. Thank you for watching the channel. I will be dropping a few more videos, and they will be talking about some of the toxic experiences that I have had. The goal is to share my experiences, to let other Black women know you are not alone, to also let you know that these jobs know exactly what's going on. Yes, they do give plantation vibes, and I apologize if some people find that offensive, but it's just the truth, and I just want to keep it 100. If you enjoyed this video or you have learned something from it, give it a thumbs up. If you're interested in other videos like this, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so that you are notified every time I upload a video. And if you know a Black woman who can benefit from this video, please share it with her. And also go to Dr. Kimani's channel as well and subscribe. She can provide you with some more information, and she deals with the healing part of it, which is what I like. I like to make Black women aware that there is help out there and that you are not alone. Have a good day.